She walked into a room rolled inside a carpet. When they unrolled it at Caesar's feet, the most powerful man in the world looked down.
And his empire would never be the same. But here's what they don't tell you in history class. Cleopatra wasn't Egyptian.
She wasn't even beautiful by Roman standards. And that entrance? It was calculated psychological warfare.
Because Cleopatra didn't seduce men with her looks.
She did something far more dangerous. Something that made kings abandon their thrones, generals betray their nations, and the entire Roman Senate declare war on a single woman. By the end of this video, you'll understand why 3 words were carved into stone after her death. Words that Romans whispered in fear for generations. She almost won. This is the true story of history's most misunderstood genius. And I promise you, everything you think you know about Cleopatra is wrong. Let me ask you something. What would you do if at 18 years old, your father died and left you co-ruler with your 10-year-old brother, who you're also supposed to marry? Oh, and did I mention, your brother's advisors want you dead. The Roman Empire is circling like vultures. Your country is bankrupt, and you're the 7th child. You were never supposed to rule at all. Alexandria, 51 BC. Imagine the richest, most advanced city in the ancient world. The Library of Alexandria, holding the world's knowledge. The lighthouse standing 450 feet tall, visible for 30 miles. This wasn't just a city. This was the city. But here's the twist. Egypt was broke. Her father, Ptolemy XII, had borrowed massive sums from Rome just to keep his throne. Egypt was drowning in debt, and Rome was coming to collect. Not with money, with conquest. Cleopatra became co-ruler with her brother, Ptolemy XIII. But let's be clear, she was a threat from day one. Why? She spoke 9 languages. Her brother spoke 1. She studied mathematics, philosophy, astronomy, and military strategy. Her brother played with toys. She understood something crucial. Egypt's survival meant playing Rome's game better than Rome itself. Her brother's advisors, 3 men named Pothinus, Theodotus, and Achilles, saw exactly what you're seeing right now. This girl was going to overshadow their puppet king. So they did what any ambitious courtiers would do. They tried to kill her. By 48 BC, Cleopatra was forced to flee, exiled, powerless, raising an army in the Syrian desert with nothing but her name and her brain. Most people would have given up. Most people would have disappeared into history. Cleopatra did something else. She waited for the perfect moment. And then, as if the gods themselves were writing her story, Julius Caesar walked into Alexandria. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Caesar wasn't there for Cleopatra. He was chasing his enemy, Pompey Magnus, in a Roman civil war. When Pompey fled to Egypt for sanctuary, do you know what Cleopatra's brother did? He murdered Pompey, cut off his head, and presented it to Caesar as a gift. The advisors thought they were being clever, eliminating Caesar's enemy to win Rome's favor. Instead, Caesar was disgusted. Pompey was a Roman citizen, a consul, his former son-in-law. You don't murder Roman nobles, not even enemies. Cleopatra, sitting in her desert camp, heard this news and realized something. Caesar wasn't just angry. He was isolated. He was 600 miles from Rome, with only 4,000 soldiers, surrounded by a hostile Egyptian army of 20,000. Caesar needed an ally. Egypt needed a ruler. And Cleopatra needed a legend. So she did something so audacious, so brilliant, that 2,000 years later, we're still talking about it. She snuck past enemy lines, past guards who'd been ordered to kill her on sight, hidden inside a rolled carpet. Some accounts say it was a laundry sack. Either way, she was smuggled into the royal palace like contraband. Imagine being Caesar. You're in hostile territory, weighing your options, when a servant enters carrying what looks like a large carpet. They unroll it,
and out steps a 21-year-old woman who shouldn't even be alive. But here's what movies get wrong. It wasn't about her beauty. Ancient historians barely mention her appearance. Plutarch said her looks were not incomparable. Roman coins show her with a prominent nose and strong features. So what captivated Caesar? Her opening line. Ancient sources suggest she immediately began speaking to Caesar in flawless Latin, not just fluent, but with perfect rhetorical flourishes. She didn't plead, she didn't seduce, she negotiated, like an equal. Do you realize what that means? Drop a comment below. Why do you think speaking to Caesar as an equal worked when begging would have failed? Within 24 hours, Caesar had made his decision. Within weeks, Alexandria burned, and within months, Cleopatra wasn't just Queen of Egypt, she was carrying Julius Caesar's child. But before you call it a romance, let me show you what this really was. The most sophisticated political alliance in ancient history. Caesar chose Cleopatra over her brother. This wasn't mercy, it was strategy. She offered him something her brother couldn't. Partnership with someone who understood how the game was played. Her brother's advisors responded by besieging them in the royal palace. Caesar and Cleopatra were trapped for months. During this siege, part of the Library of Alexandria caught fire. The flames you see in movies? Those happened because Cleopatra chose Caesar. But here's the genius move. While trapped, Cleopatra was orchestrating. She sent messages to her loyalists. She promised reforms. She used every hour to consolidate power. When reinforcements finally arrived and Caesar crushed the Egyptian army, her 13-year-old brother drowned in the Nile trying to escape. Cleopatra was now sole ruler of Egypt. And then they took a vacation. Caesar and Cleopatra sailed down the Nile on a massive ceremonial barge. 400 ships, some sources say. This wasn't romance. This was a victory tour. She was pregnant with Caesarion, little Caesar. The message was clear. The future of Egypt had Roman blood. Caesar returned to Rome, and later, Cleopatra followed. She lived in Caesar's villa across the Tiber River. Imagine the scandal. A foreign queen in Rome with Caesar's illegitimate child, while Caesar had a Roman wife. Romans hated her. They called her a foreign temptress, a witch, an existential threat to Roman values. They weren't completely wrong, because Cleopatra saw something Caesar was beginning to see. Rome could become an empire, not just a republic. Egypt could be its jewel. Their son could unite East and West. Ancient sources suggest Caesar was planning to make himself king, something Romans had sworn never to accept again. And then, on March 15th, 44 BC, the Ides of March, 60 senators conspired, stabbed Julius Caesar 23 times on the floor of the Senate. Cleopatra was still in Rome when it happened. The most powerful man in the world, her ally, her partner, the father of her child, dead in a pool of blood. She had no army, no protection. And every senator who just murdered Caesar knew exactly where she lived. So what did she do? She vanished. If you were Cleopatra in that moment, what would you have done? Comment below, stay in Rome, or flee. She fled back to Egypt with Caesarion, now 3 years old. In Rome, civil war exploded. Caesar's assassins versus Caesar's allies. Brutus and Cassius versus Mark Antony and Octavian. Egypt was rich. Everyone needed money for war. And Cleopatra? She played both sides, carefully, waiting to see who would win. Mark Antony and Octavian crushed the assassins at the Battle of Philippi in 42 BC. Now they divided the Roman world. Octavian took the west, Antony took the east, and Antony summoned Cleopatra to meet him in Tarsus. Here we go again, you might think. Another Roman general, another seduction. But Cleopatra was 28 now. not 21. And she'd learned something crucial from Caesar's death. Romans could turn on you in an instant. So, she didn't arrive as a supplicant. She arrived as a goddess. Picture this. Mark Antony is sitting in the marketplace of Tarsus, waiting on his tribunal chair, expecting a nervous queen to come begging for his favor. Instead, he hears music. Then, he sees the crowd turning, staring at the river. A golden barge appears, shimmering in the sunlight. Purple sails billowing, silver oars keeping perfect rhythm. The deck is covered in flowers, and incense smoke drifts across the water like perfume. And there, under a canopy of gold cloth, lies Cleopatra, dressed as Aphrodite, the goddess of love. Her attendants are dressed as cupids. The entire ship looks like a painting of paradise come to life. Plutarch writes that even Antony's own soldiers abandoned his tribunal to line the riverbanks and watch her arrive. She didn't come to Antony. She made Antony come to her when Antony sent a messenger inviting her to dinner. Do you know what Cleopatra said? No, you come dine with me. And he did. That first banquet? Ancient sources say she spent the equivalent of millions today just on that one night. The floor was covered knee-deep in roses. The room glittered with gold and gems. Every detail screamed, I am not intimidated by Rome. I am richer than Rome. But here's what separates Cleopatra from every other diplomatic seductress in history. She didn't just throw money at Antony. She matched him intellectually. She drank with him. She joked with him. She gambled, hunted, and fished with him. Ancient historians note she could shift personalities like changing masks. Philosopher with scholars, general with soldiers, merchant with traders. With Antony, a soldier who loved excess, she became his perfect partner in pleasure. Within a year, Cleopatra was pregnant again, this time with twins, Alexander Helios and Cleopatra Selene. Sun and moon. The symbolism wasn't subtle. For the next decade, Antony and Cleopatra became co-rulers of the Eastern Mediterranean. This wasn't just an affair. It was a geopolitical revolution. Antony gave Cleopatra territories that hadn't belonged to Egypt in centuries. Cyprus, parts of Syria, Phoenicia. He declared her sons by Caesar and himself to be rulers of kingdoms. Romans were furious. Their general was giving away Roman conquests to a foreign queen. But Antony had a vision. He'd rule the East with Egypt's wealth. Octavian could have the West. Rome could become an empire with two capitals. There was just one problem. Octavian. Remember Octavian? Caesar's adopted heir? He was 19 when they divided the Roman world. Now he was 32, and he'd spent every year consolidating power in Rome, turning himself from Caesar's boy into Caesar's true successor. He watched Antony in Egypt and saw exactly what Cleopatra represented, a competing vision of Rome's future. So Octavian did something brilliant. He didn't attack Antony, he attacked Cleopatra. He spread rumors. She was a witch who'd enslaved Antony with dark magic. She was planning to move Rome's capital to Alexandria. She'd made Antony abandon his Roman wife, Octavian's own sister, for foreign pleasure. Every story painted the same picture. Antony wasn't a traitor. He was a victim. Cleopatra was the villain, the foreign seductress, destroying Rome from within. Sound familiar? When powerful women threaten the status quo, what's the first thing history does? Comment if you see the pattern. In 32 BC, Octavian made his move. He illegally seized Antony's will from the Vestal Virgins and read it aloud to the Senate. The will reportedly said Antony wanted to be buried in Alexandria, not Rome. That his children with Cleopatra would inherit territories. That he acknowledged Caesarion as Caesar's true son, making Octavian's claim as heir questionable. Whether Octavian forged parts of it, we'll never know. But it worked. The Senate didn't declare war on Antony, their fellow Roman. They declared war on Cleopatra. For the first time in Roman history, they declared war on a woman. September 2nd, 31 BC, the Bay of Actium, Greece. On one side, Octavian with 400 ships and 80,000 infantry. On the other, Antony and Cleopatra with 500 ships and 100,000 infantry. On paper, Antony should have won, but wars aren't won on paper. They're won with morale, logistics, and timing. And Cleopatra and Antony were losing all three. Antony's soldiers were tired. They'd been camped for months in disease-ridden swamps. Malaria was spreading. Supplies were running low. Worse, Octavian's general, Agrippa, was a tactical genius. He'd been raiding their supply lines, cutting them off from reinforcements. And, worst of all, Antony's own Roman soldiers didn't trust Cleopatra. They resented taking orders from a foreign queen. Ancient sources disagree on exactly what happened next. Some say Cleopatra panicked and fled. Others say she executed a planned retreat that Antony was supposed to follow. What we know for certain, in the middle of the naval battle, Cleopatra's 60 Egyptian ships broke formation and sailed away. Antony saw this and made a choice that would define his legacy. He abandoned his fleet, boarded a small ship, and followed her. His soldiers watched their commander chase after the Egyptian queen, leaving them to die. The battle was over. Octavian had won. Back in Alexandria, Antony fell into depression. Ancient sources say he built a small house on a pier and sat there alone, calling it his Timonium, after Timon, the famous misanthrope. But Cleopatra? She went into survival mode. She sent messages to Octavian offering deals. Would he spare her children if she abdicated? Would he spare Egypt if she surrendered? She sent gold, jewels, promises. Octavian sent back one message. I'll spare you if you kill Antony. A year passed. Octavian's armies approached Alexandria. Antony rallied for one last fight, a small cavalry skirmish, where, for a moment, his soldiers remembered why they'd followed him. But it was too late. His army deserted. His fleet defected to Octavian. And then, Antony heard a rumor. Cleopatra was dead. She'd killed herself in her tomb. Antony, in his grief, fell on his sword. Roman style. The honorable way out. Except Cleopatra wasn't dead. It was a miscommunication, or possibly a strategic lie to protect herself. When Antony learned the truth, he was carried, dying, to Cleopatra's mausoleum. She refused to open the doors. Octavian's soldiers were outside, so she and her attendants used ropes to pull Antony up through a window. He died in her arms, inside her tomb. His last words, according to Plutarch, "Don't pity me. I've lived as a Roman should." Octavian captured Cleopatra. He wanted her alive, to march her through Rome in chains during his triumph. The ultimate humiliation. She knew this. She'd seen it happen to other conquered rulers. She'd be paraded like a circus animal, then likely executed, while Roman crowds jeered. That was not how Cleopatra's story would end. Ancient sources say she tried to seduce Octavian. It didn't work. He was 32, calculating, and immune to the tricks that had worked on Caesar and Antony. So she tried negotiating. Let her be buried with Antony. Let her children live. Spare Egypt. Octavian made vague promises. Cleopatra knew they meant nothing. Pause for a second. If you were Cleopatra, trapped with no armies, no allies, facing enslavement and execution, what would you do? Comment your move. August 12, 30 BC, Cleopatra asked for permission to visit Antony's tomb one last time. Octavian allowed it. He thought she was broken. She wasn't. She returned to her chambers, bathed, dressed in her royal regalia, and had a final meal delivered from outside the palace. Figs. Hidden in the basket of figs, according to ancient sources, was an asp, a small Egyptian cobra, whose bite caused a relatively painless death. When Octavian's guards finally broke into her room, they found Cleopatra dead on her golden couch, dressed as a queen. One of her attendants was dying at her feet. The other was adjusting Cleopatra's crown. "Was this well done?" one of the guards asked. The dying attendant replied, "It is well done, and fitting for a princess descended from so many kings." Cleopatra was 39 years old. She'd ruled Egypt for 21 years, longer than most Ptolemaic rulers. She'd partnered with the two most powerful men in the Roman world. She'd given birth to 4 children, 1 by Caesar, 3 by Antony, and she'd taken control of her own ending. Octavian granted her one request. She was buried beside Antony. Their tomb has never been found. As for her children, Caesarion was murdered on Octavian's orders. You can't have rival heirs. But Cleopatra's twins with Antony were raised by Octavian's sister Octavia in Rome. Cleopatra Selene eventually married an African king and had children of her own. Cleopatra's bloodline survived. So let me tell you what Cleopatra actually was. She wasn't the most beautiful woman in the world. Ancient sources barely mention her looks. She wasn't just a seductress. She was a scholar who spoke 9 languages, studied at the Library of Alexandria, and wrote books on medicine and mathematics that Romans used for centuries. She wasn't lucky. She survived 2 civil wars, multiple assassination attempts, and navigated the most dangerous political landscape in ancient history. What Cleopatra understood, and what terrified Rome, was this. She didn't need to be a man to have power. She weaponized everything they expected from a woman: charm, beauty, intellect, and used it to build an empire. Do you know what Romans wrote after she died? Horace, the famous poet, wrote, "Now is the time to drink, now is the time to dance," for she plotted mad destruction for the capital. They were relieved she was dead, because deep down they knew she almost won. If Caesar hadn't been assassinated, Caesarion might have united Rome and Egypt. If Antony had won at Actium, the capital of the Roman Empire might have moved to Alexandria. Cleopatra came within inches of reshaping Western civilization. For 2,000 years, men have been trying to reduce her to a seductress, to make her story about beauty and sex, because that's easier to dismiss than the terrifying truth. She was smarter than them. She outmaneuvered them. She held power in a world designed to exclude her, and the only way they could beat her was to destroy everything she loved, invade her country with the greatest military force in the ancient world. And still, she died on her own terms. Here's what I want you to think about. History is written by the victors. Octavian won. He became Augustus, first emperor of Rome. And his historians wrote Cleopatra's story as a cautionary tale, the dangerous foreign woman who corrupted Roman men. But what if we've had it backward this whole time? What if Cleopatra wasn't the villain in Rome's story? What if Rome was the villain in hers? If this story changed how you see Cleopatra, hit that like button. If you want to know what really happened to Caesarion and why Octavian hunted him down, or what became of Cleopatra's lost tomb, drop a comment below and tell me which story to cover next. Because history isn't just battles and dates. It's humans. Brilliant, flawed, desperate humans, making impossible choices under unbearable pressure. And sometimes, those humans are women the world tried to forget. Don't let them. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.